Hi guys, I'm Erica. Welcome to Hack Your Health. So this is going to be a what I ate in a day style video. Basically, I'm just going to show you what I eat on a typical weekend day. And I'm going to start this on Saturday night, which is right now, to show you the things that I prep once a week and eat daily. So that is homemade yogurt and homemade bone broth. I already have a couple of videos about how to make bone broth, so I won't go into the whole tutorial. And if you want a video about how to make homemade yogurt, then let me know in the comments below and I'll make one of those as well. As many of you know, I used the Specific Carbohydrate Diet around 8 years ago to heal from Crohn's disease. And ever since then, I haven't been on medication and I haven't had any major flares, but I still do have some sensitivities to certain foods. So you'll probably notice that this is a very low fiber diet that I'm showing you today, and that's on purpose. And this is not at all prescriptive, and I don't think that the exact same thing is gonna work for every single person. So another thing you might notice about this video is that all of this food is local. So I really do my best, even though it's winter right now in Canada, to buy local food, and I find that that's also really beneficial to me, and I think it's better for the environment and the local economy, etc. So the reason why I'm making my own yogurt is because then it has a lot of probiotics in it, which are really helpful for healing the microbiome. I'm going to turn this on to medium heat and let it come to almost a boil. These are some beef bones, and you can see that there's quite a bit of marrow here, as well as some pork neck bones, and this has more of the connective tissue and meat. So I haven't tried these particular kinds before, but I like to use a variety of different bones from week to week in my broth. And I found that chicken feet and pork trotters have been really great to have very gelatinous broth, and I'm hoping that this pork neck will make a good gelatinous broth too. You can see that now this is starting to form bubbles, and I'm gonna take it off of the heat. So at this point, I've roasted these bones for probably 15 minutes or so, and I'm just gonna put them in with these onions, carrots, and celery. So there we have the bones and the vegetables. I'm going to fill this up with fresh cold water. So I'm gonna add like 1 or 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and the acid in the vinegar just helps draw the minerals out of the bones. And then I'm gonna add some salt and put the lid on, and I'm gonna leave this for about an hour, and then in an hour I'll turn it on. So at this point, my milk has cooled down enough. So what I'm going to do next is pour a small amount of this into my starter yogurt, and then I'm going to mix this very thoroughly. Now I'm going to pour it into the larger amount, and I'm going to mix that together. So there they are, and in 24 hours this will be SCD friendly yogurt. The reason why I showed you how to make these two foods is because for me they are the most important to incorporate into my diet, is fermented milk, especially homemade yogurt and kefir, and bone broth. These are the two most healing foods in my experience. And then I'll see you again tomorrow for my full day of eating. So it's the next morning, and I always start with water. So this is just some dark roast coffee that I got for Christmas from my sister. So now my coffee is being made, and we're almost ready to start the day. So I just made this without pushing record, so that's what happens when I try to do anything before I drink coffee. But what I put in it was honey, and this is a local brand of honey where the people that own a brewery are making this honey on the roof, which I think is pretty cool. And I also put in whipping cream, which I know is not SCD legal, and I don't do SCD 100% anymore, but it is low in lactose, and you can use the bulletproof coffee recipe if you want a lactose-free coffee. It has butter in it, and I actually used to put butter in my coffee when I was on the Specific Carbohydrate Diet strictly. And in my next cup of coffee, I'm gonna have some gelatin in it, and I just mix it with the cream first and then add the coffee to dissolve the gelatin. My broth is ready. So what I'm gonna do is transfer this over into another pot. Okay guys, so here's where you might be saying, what in God's name is that? So these are beef tendons and they are 85% collagen. This is not something that I eat on a regular basis, but you can find them in pho and I always love them, and so I occasionally cook them. So what I'm going to do is cut these up into bite-sized pieces that I can add to my broth. And I've separated my broth out now. So basically at this point I'm making a soup. And these need to cook for 4 to 8 hours. So I'm gonna start them now. So these are really, really tough and hard to begin with. But when they cook, they become really soft and almost sweet. It's kind of like the texture of a chewy candy, sort of. And these are what holds the animal's body together, and this same stuff is what holds our body together. So it's really important to eat stuff with collagen, which breaks down into gelatin in it. And if you want to know more about that, you can watch my video about gelatin. In comparison to muscle meat, connective tissue like this is more anti-inflammatory because of the amino acids that are found in gelatin versus muscle meat. And it also has a healing effect on the digestive system. And there's also an amino acid in these that helps heal the microvilli in your small intestine. So it's really important to get enough collagen or gelatin if you're trying to heal your gut. And it's a protein source that's potentially less irritating or inflammatory than muscle meat. So you might want to try cooking with some of these weird meats. And that's just my suggestion based on my personal experience and research. It's not medical advice at all. And I'm absolutely not going to be eating all of this in one day. I'm just going to cook it all today because it takes a long time to cook, and then I'll have it for later in the fridge. So I'm just adding these to some of the broth that I made earlier. And I also pulled off a few pieces of meat that were good off of the bones. So this just has a bit of meat and this tendon. So I'm gonna let this simmer. It's not quite simmering yet, but I'm gonna let this simmer for about 4 hours, and then I'll start checking on it to see if the tendons are done. So this broth is simmering now with the tendons in it, and they're still really hard. It's only been about half an hour. But what I'm gonna do is add some spices. So since this is inspired by pho Vietnamese soup, I'm gonna add some star anise, some cloves, and some pepper. And this normally would have cardamom and some other spices in it, but I don't have those right now, so I'm just gonna use what I have. And I'm just gonna use a pretty small amount and put it in a tea strainer. And then I'm just gonna put that in the broth. That way it's really easy to remove the spices later. So it's about 1 p.m. at this point, and I'm preparing my first actual meal of the day besides coffee. Before I open this, I'll just show you, I'm gonna add some mushrooms later. So these are oyster mushrooms. They're organic. I'm not sure whether they're grown in soil. I don't think they are, and they look like this. I just like to have a bit of homemade sauerkraut with that for probiotics and some, nutrition of the cabbage and stuff. So if you want to know how to make homemade sauerkraut, I have a video about that too. So there we go, my first meal of the day. Hi guys, so I thought I'd just give you a little bit of context about the season here and the temperature, because I think that's really relevant to my diet, at least because I try to eat local and in-season foods. So as you can see, it's winter, it's pretty cold, and there's not a lot growing right now in terms of fruits and vegetables. So there are some things that are easy to save from the fall that are still available locally in terms of vegetables, and then there's also food that's available year-round like dairy and eggs, etc. And in the summer I eat a lot more fruits and vegetables than I do in the winter, and in the winter I also like to eat things that are going to keep me warm, like soups and more hearty filling foods. So that's just to give you a little bit of context about where I am, and if you're in a tropical place, it's very likely that your diet will be very different. So I'm going to add a lot of cabbage because I need to cook it. So I'm just gonna mix this with more bone broth later, I think. So you can see that the tendon is getting really soft now. So it's basically cooked. It's been about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. So I'm gonna cook this for probably 40 minutes with the cabbage so it gets super soft, and then this is gonna be done. So here we have my finished dinner, and I know it's a little random, but this is just what I felt like eating. And I made another egg. Then there's the soup with the tendon in it and the cabbage, as well as some squash. So this is what I'm gonna have for dinner. It's been 24 hours now since I started this video, so that means that my yogurt is ready. I fermented it for 24 hours because that way you can know for sure that the lactose is completely broken down. And I'll show you what it looks like now. So it's still in the same container. You can see that there's some condensation there. And I should mention that this yogurt maker doesn't turn off after 12 hours. It says it has a 12-hour timer, but it doesn't actually turn off. It just is to let you know when you started it. So the yogurt looks like this, and this is gonna be the last thing I eat today, is one of these containers of yogurt. And in case you're curious, I'll just show you what the texture is like too. So it's basically like store-bought yogurt, maybe slightly less thick, but you could also try putting gelatin in it or using some cream mixed with the milk, or you can also try straining it if you want thicker yogurt. That's kind of off topic. So with that, my what I ate in a day video is coming to a conclusion. And during the week, I eat different foods than on the weekends because I have catered food at work. So really, I do the best I can, and that's all we really can do. And if you want to see more videos like this, let me know. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions or anything else, let me know in the comments below, or your personal stories and the foods that work for you. Any of that, I'd love to hear, and I'm sure would also be helpful to others. And if you want to see more of my videos, I have them about the top 10 and the worst 10 foods for Crohn's disease, and probiotics and bone broth and a bunch of related topics. So if you're interested in those, you can find those on my channel. And if you want to see new videos as I make them, then you can also subscribe. And thank you so much for watching, and all the best on your healing journey. Okay. Bye. Hey guys, so it's the next day, and I just wanted to quickly show you what this looks like once it's cold. So this is the soup that I made, and you can see how gelatinous this is. It's basically solid at fridge temperature, which is really amazing because that means this has a lot of gelatin and collagen. And also this is probably because I boiled the tendon afterwards in the same water. So if you're interested in gelatin or in kind of whole animal nose to tail eating, this is some of the positive results, and this is a really delicious soup. So you can see that it's starting to melt, and it's just turning back into soup again. And this is really, really delicious, and it makes you feel so good when you eat it. And that's one thing I didn't mention in the video. So thanks for watching. Bye.